me happy and I did make happiness a priority, then I'd live my life a different way. Just that, plain and simply. I don't pretend to talk for everyone of my particular lack of belief system, but personally I am very malleable in terms of my beliefs on issues, and I'd be very undeterred by finding out that things were different.
Just to recap your question, are you asking how do I respond if my values are challenged? Is that
what your values or beliefs about what makes you happy, or
when that's challenged?
when that's challenged?
Okay, but including my values. Okay, well, my values. Let's just summarise those. I believe in kindness, compassion, truthfulness, patience, things like that. They're my values. They're not often challenged because that's pretty much motherhood. I think we'd all, agree with those sorts of values. Is my approach to being happy, if that was challenged? My approach is basically to use my meditation to improve my mind and to provide service in the community. That's how I get happiness, in a nutshell. So am I challenged about meditating? I invite any discussion about meditation. It's a great topic to talk about. A lot of people are curious about it. I'm not often challenged about it. As for volunteering and service, most people accept that as a useful part of life, and that's normally not challenged either, and I'm happy to talk about that also. So most of the time I'm not challenged. I don't actually advertise that I'm a Buddhist. I've got a day job and I don't advertise the fact that I'm a Buddhist there because it's not relevant. I'm not looking to change anybody else's opinion or life. If they ask me, are you a Buddhist? I'd probably come back with another question. I'd say, let's talk about an issue or an aspect of life, and let's talk about that rather than labels. Because I think it's more interesting to talk about how we approach life than, what label do you give yourself. So, I enjoy conversations like this, but I'm normally not challenged.
So, is it possible, or how do you find contentment in the face of tragedy?
Okay. How do you find contentment in the face of tragedy? Like personal tragedy?
Personal tragedy, whatever makes you sad.
Okay, right.
I'm speaking more about great loss.
Yeah.
Like bereavement, that sort of thing?
I guess.
Okay. We've all probably been to funerals. We've all probably had significant loss in our life, and different people have different approaches to that. What's my approach? My approach is to realise that death is part of life. It's a natural process that we all have to face, and that to me emphasises the value of life. It tells me don't take it for granted, so I see life as very precious. Part of my Buddhist practice when I get up in the morning is to reflect, you could call it prayer, to reflect on just how fortunate I am in life, to have all the things that I have going for me. And that helps me, in a way, get through any difficulties or problems. When I lose people in my life through death, I see death as inevitable, but I also see, I suppose, something in common with a Christian, that there is continuity. To me, as a Buddhist, there is continuity. It's not just a physical, realm that we occupy, and that's it. So in that way, I have something in common with Christians, that there is a sort of a continuation after the physical life ends. So another aspect I'd like to mention is that when you do have loss, you can use that as a way to build strength and to grow. A lot of people grow from adversity, through loss and through difficulties and challenges. So I think when things do go wrong, and for a Buddhist, it's inevitable that things are going to go wrong in life, we use that as an opportunity, not as an opportunity to be sorry for ourselves. It's an opportunity to actually grow and become stronger and wiser and actually more compassionate for others, because other people also suffer.
One of my best mates is a guy called John, who's, in the last 3 years, I reckon he's been through more pain than anyone I've ever met. So they had a daughter born with Down syndrome named Rosa, who then had leukemia. John's been suffering from depression for the last 5 years, and in the midst of that, their son died. And John and I play darts every Thursday together. And a couple of times I've said to him, mate, why haven't you turned your back on God here? If this is what the life God gives you, why do you want it? And it was interesting. He said to me two things. One, Jesus became a human and went through tremendous pain. So he's not a distant God who doesn't understand. On the cross, he suffered tremendous pain and throughout his life. And the second thing, he suffered tremendous pain to put an end to it. That is, there's this promise of a life without pain beyond. So speaking, I think that if John was here tonight, he'd say those two things. Jesus understands it, and he died to put an end to it. In that context, I've seen John just go through more pain than I could ever imagine. Yeah. To lump all of the possible sadnesses together, I'd say counter all of them by putting it into perspective, by focusing on what is important and trying not to let the circumstances consume you. Make sure that your mind is not one track on whatever the tragedy is, but you always have some time to think about those things which you like about life.
Okay, we have a question here, sorry.
Sam took the question I was going to ask, so I'll ask a different one. Do your chosen philosophies ever bring you unhappiness or sadness?
Okay. So is there any sense of grief or sadness in holding to the convictions, the beliefs, the worldview that you do?
No. Every time things go wrong, and they inevitably do, the more I reflect on how the teachings can be applied and used to overcome those difficulties or grief or challenges, the more I test those things in practice, the more I see they work. For me. I'm not saying for other people, it works for me. When I test it, even try to prove it wrong, it works for me. So, no, it does work for me.
As a rationalist, I'm pretty happy generally anyway. I find great discomfort from not understanding why some things work, but find great comfort from my own belief system knowing that I'm doing my best to try and understand various aspects of life. And that makes me happy. So, yeah, it's a method that's self-correcting in terms of happiness.
I think I feel torn. So there are things that I think in the moment I really want to do that. And I feel like that will make me more happy if I do that. But Jesus tells me not to. And so I feel this angst. I'm torn in that moment. And what I'm forced to do is ask myself, do I trust Jesus? So I think there's a certain degree of pain there. Realistically, every time I choose to follow Jesus, I end up going, wow, I'm really glad I did that. In terms of pain, I'm the only Christian in my family, which means that I can't really think of my mum and my brother and their future without a large degree of fear and pain. And so at that point, I'm kind of driven, because I love them. Yeah.
Can I just check, how are you going with hearing at the back? You hearing it all? Okay, great. Thanks. Back corner here.
So you mentioned that sort of a dependence or looking for attainment of a particular item to gain happiness. You said that in the long run that's probably not the best policy. Would you say that that may also apply to a certain system of belief? So pinning your happiness on a system of belief, is that perhaps a flawed notion?
So are you talking about the happiness paradox that Brian mentioned?
Sort of.
You find it by
saying
not
that,
looking for it.
by creating a contract with ourselves, right? So saying that we're not happy unless we've achieved, say, this item, right? You might want a TV. So you say without, you really want this TV. You're very attached to the idea of having it. So without it, you're not happy. Does that make sense? So then I'm saying it applies to items. Would you say it also applies to perhaps a system of belief? So is it better to sort of live our life? Yeah. Does that make sense? Or?
The last bit, you've got to finish that off.
Yeah. All right. It's sort of like, would you say that creating a contract with ourselves that if we say that we believe in God and we're happy, would you say that by being independent of belief from God, could that make us happier does it work along the same lines as an attachment to objects, or is it a different sort of concept?
I suppose that's directed to me. I was careful to start off by saying what I know works for me, rather than to say, hey, you got to do this, because I know that there are different approaches. So I was really just sharing my approach. What I would say in your support is that to have a confidence or a conviction in something transcendent is good. Now that sounds like I'm judging it and giving it a tick of approval. I don't mean it like that. It's what I've observed in life, that anybody who is limited just to the material world, however you describe that, has I suppose, maybe a disadvantage from my perspective. So if you and I both agree there's something transcendent, then I think we have something which can support us. Now, it might be a different kind of transcendence, but it's kind of a worldview. Now, I don't think your belief in Jesus or your faith is so much an attachment to a sensual gratification, like a magazine or some food or something like that. I don't put it in that category. So, in a way, I'm sort of supporting you that if you have something that gives you a fulfillment and a purpose and a direction in life which is transcendent from this, then to me that's good, because it's lifting you and anybody who has that approach above attachment to physical things and those sort of sense gratifications that keep us busy in life. So have I made that clear?
No,
that I'm sort of
yeah, you made sense of the question pretty well.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I'd like to do something that might be novel for tonight and disagree. I'd like to say that attachment to belief systems can be a problem, to the extent that if a belief system is rigid, then some things which are detrimental may come into play. And you may find yourself doing something that you may not want to do because it's part of a greater belief system, because you're tied to the whole thing. Whereas if you said just tied yourself to some of a belief system or applied your own judgment in how you attach yourself to a belief system, then you have much more potential for exercising your own judgment and therefore better chance of maximizing your own happiness.
I'd say everyone has a system of belief. Some of them you can put a name to, like atheism or Christianity